Thank you all so much for joining me, Angel, and Nicole today. We're really honored that you took time out of your busy schedules to hopefully, learn something new and feel empowered to heal your relationship with money. But, I'm actually going to hand it off to Angel, who I'm so grateful who took the lead on this call.
Thank you all so much. Welcome to Hatching Our Financial, Healing Your Relationship with Money. First off, I'm so grateful for everyone that is joining us and for everyone who's going to see the recording. I'm really motivated and excited to create space to have these conversations. I feel like they're very much long overdue. But before we begin talking about why our topic is about finances, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Angel Guzman. I am the co-founder and chief operating officer for Hatching. And I have a diverse background in finances, which I think why it's natural for this topic to come up in our Hatching Hour lineup. So I also like to introduce our founder and CEO, Jose Ocaño, who will tell you more about what we do and also introduce our guest speaker.
Yes, gracias, Angel. So my name is Jose. I know many of you as well. So we started Hatching to help people live better and work better because we spend so much of our lives at work that we really wanted to address, how to operate at work. But essentially, when people ask me what is Hatching, I say we're a professional and personal development company, and we take a compassion-based approach to help people live and operate with more self-awareness and self-accountability. Because we believe if we help you be more self-aware and self-accountable, you can become more intentional about what you want and why you want it in your life, and that can transform your entire lived experience. And so part of what we do is we bring on people like Nicole, who I'm really excited to introduce many of you to, because she has an expertise that can help us. So much of what helps us to live better and work better is paying attention to our well-being. And a lot of times when people hear the word well-being, they think of health and wellness. They think of like mental well-being, physical well-being, spiritual well-being, emotional well-being. But one of the fundamental parts of well-being is financial well-being. And we live in capitalistic America, where money is a tool that is used for us to be able to have certain experiences. And many of us grew up not having conversations about money or knowing how to relate to money. And so that's why today's conversation is going to be really powerful. So I actually want to share my screen one more time. And it's really exciting for me to actually get to introduce you formally to Nicole. She's someone who has been a dear friend of mine since high school, someone that I have always looked up to, especially as it relates to money. When I remember she told me last year, she's like, I'm 35 and I'm paying my house off. I was like, what? That is an incredible thing. And I was like, this is someone for all of us to learn from. So Nicole Valenzuela is a financial manager, personal finance coach, and founder and CEO of Fostering Finances, LLC. She obtained a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration and Accounting from the University of Arizona and has over 14 years of combined experience in corporate accounting and finance. She has a proven track record of delivering strategic financial investment strategies in diverse industries, including tech, fitness, and health and wellness for several Fortune 50 companies. Not 500, y'all, 50 companies. In 2023, Nicole proudly launched Fostering Finances, LLC, which aims to eliminate barriers to financial freedom amongst marginalized communities. Nicole works one-on-one with a village of foster parents, LGBTQIA+, and BIPOC women to provide financial literacy, heal generational money trauma, and achieve financial independence. Outside of her professional career, Nicole is a licensed foster parent in Arizona and provides financial education to teens in foster care. Nicole, welcome. It is an honor to work with you now in a professional setting, and I will hand it off to you and Angel.
Yeah, thank you, Jose. So this topic, as you know, has been, well, Jose knows, it's been on my mind even before we created Hatching Hours. So I'm really grateful to have this conversation. A few years ago, Jose and I began working on our relationship with money, and it's really improved the quality of our life and the way we navigate it. And now being entrepreneurs, we're living a tricky balance between ensuring that we have enough savings to sustain our lifestyle, but also invest in our business and believe in our earning potential and our offerings through Hatching. And so, many of us growing up in social circles. Like, how many of you talk about money with others, like people's relationships to money, spending, savings, not what they make, but all of the stress that goes into living and having to manage finances. And the answer to that question is probably zero. I never had conversations with friends or anyone about their money traumas and issues. So this just Sunday, Jose, Nicole, and I had a conversation about finances, and it was really, it was healing kind of in a way. And so later on, we'll share more about what that sounded like so that we can offer that to you as well. And so here are some reasons why we created this hatching hour. One, the financial industry, advertising, marketing, they thrive on us being disconnected from our financial reality. We're likely to spend beyond our means if we don't know what our means are, and if we're caught up in guilt, shame, and stress and regret. Many of us also grew up in very hardworking homes, but very scarce environments where money was tight. So many of us maybe heard, no, there's no money for that. That's too expensive. You can't afford that. That's for rich people. And so Nicole is going to talk more about how the formative years impacts our relationship to money. And also, who remembers their first credit card? Were we educated on interest rates and how all that worked? Many of us just bought all the things and we got into debt. And now we're still many dealing with the debt of our decisions. So financial wellness is a component of overall wellness, like Jose mentioned, and it's more than just numbers. It's about creating healthier, purposeful relationships with money that aligns with our goals and values. So before I hand it over to Nicole, I want to encourage everyone to participate if you feel comfortable. We'll have opportunities to share your thoughts and responses in the chat. And this is a safe space and there's no right or wrong answer. So if you can, have a piece of paper and pencil or pen handy so we can take a few notes. We have a few journal prompts that we want to reflect on. So welcome, Nicole. I'm honored and thankful that you're here with us. So take it away.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for the introduction. I've had my bio read before, but just hearing Jose say it, a dear friend of mine, it hit different. I'm really excited for this conversation. As I was looking through, some of the participants, I'm seeing a lot of faces that I recognize, and I'm just honored to be able to have this conversation. I talk money, my life, it's a part of my work. And, lots of people want to have conversations about what they deem as the foundation of finance, which is typically budgeting. And I want to give kudos to Angel and Jose because this is a true foundational conversation about money. It's a necessary conversation. So I'm excited to have it with so many familiar faces. And I'm already seeing the chat, people typing things in. And like Angel said, I'm happy to do it in this safe space, this safe environment. So thank you guys for inviting me. Really, really excited for today. So let's go ahead and kick off an exercise. Jose is going to flash up some words. And what we want you guys to do is we want you to go through these lists of words on the right and tally up. I know a lot of us are finger counters. So start tallying up with your fingers, which words you associate with your relationship with money. And as you tally them up, we're going to be later putting those numbers in the chat. So keep track and just spend a couple minutes going through each, or a couple seconds going through each of the words. If you don't know what that word, how it could even relate to money, don't worry about it, bypass it. Just go with your gut of which words resonate with you and your relationship with money. So we'll go ahead and give you a couple minutes to go through that and just tally them up on your fingers.
It looks like we have a few responses already, so thank you for participating in that. Of 5, 3, 5, 4, 5, 5, 2, 4.
I want to be 5, but when I'm really honest with myself, I'm 2.
So we're going to do a similar exercise with a different set of words. And we're going to do the same thing where we're going to list or start tallying up the words or the number of words that you associate with your relationship with money using a different set of words. So go ahead and do the same exercise, keep track. And when you're done, you can start typing them in the chat so we know where everyone's at. All of the above, all of them, seeing a lot of all of them, definitely seeing a lot higher numbers associated with the second set of list of words. I appreciate you guys all reflecting and taking the time to be honest and especially share your results with the rest of us. So thank you for going through that exercise.
Now, based on those results, Nicole, what does that tell us? Like, why do so many of us have that strained relationship to money?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I'm excited for this conversation, right, is as you, also we're talking about this conversation, we have been through so much collectively as friends, right? We have over 20 years of friendship, and we've talked about, relationships, exes, new jobs. We've had different milestones in our relationship, but we rarely ever talk about money. And it's great to see some of these responses because we're getting into that framework of talking about money. But the reason why a lot of us have a strained relationship with money is, we are made up of a collective of various parts. And when I say that, what I mean is there's lots of things that flow into our relationship with money. So there's education, there is gender roles, there is sexual identity, religion, history, race. All of these things and more are flowing into what has formed the foundation of our relationship with money. And everything I've read in books regarding our relationship with money has formed at the very early stages of 0 to 7. That's when it's really getting ingrained in what money means, and our relationship is developing at those very, very early stages. Most of us know we didn't get the education in school systems, the financial literacy to help us understand money better. But there's also all these other factors, right? I mentioned gender roles being one of them. Speaking just for my background and many of the folks on the call's background as well, is that those Latino roots, right? And society in general, where we have certain gender roles where the value of the man comes from their ability to make money, their ability to provide for the family, and versus the gender roles of the female, which are typically rooted in their ability to maintain a household and their ability to have children. And so that's ingrained in us. For me, when we talk about those gender roles, some of that was men learn about money and women don't. And growing up as a queer person, I looked around and I saw women weren't learning about money. We weren't supposed to learn about money. We weren't supposed to manage money. And so for me, knowing that I wasn't going to be with men, had to learn very quickly that I wasn't going to be able to be supported by a man. I had to learn this stuff about money on my own. I had to get financial literacy and education on my own. And so that's just an example of how sexual identity and gender roles can play a part in your relationship with money. I also mentioned religion. And so we can do the mean girls of who here has been personally victimized by the pull out and pray method of the Latino culture that's deeply rooted in Catholicism. And, with that came, our parents that had a larger number of kids, right? And in doing that and being rooted in that Catholicism, having children wasn't about financial abilities. And so a lot of us grew up with a lot of children. So that created scarce money in the household. And that has led for a lot of us to scarcity mindsets. And versus other religions that procreating is not necessarily rooted in the religion. And so they're having kids based off of just sole financial ability. And then you also have what's rooted in religion is Dios quiere, right? It's about, even if you have dire financial situations, you might have had that mentality of it's God's will, right? It's God's will of how much money I have. Versus other religions, it's more on your own actions that you can take, and you can take actions to get yourself out of poverty. Race, right? Race is a whole other thing in itself, in terms of marginalized communities have less access to a lot of resources that can help with growing financial wealth and financial independence. So I say this all to say is there's so many factors that contribute to what our relationship with money is and how it was formed. And it's different for all of us. It's not that to say that any of them are bad or good, but there's a lot that goes into how our relationship with money is formed. And some of those things can result in a strained relationship.
So I think we're going to go to a journal prompt where we kind of reflect and start to uncover some of those beliefs within ourselves and see where the money patterns come from. So we'll just take a few minutes to reflect on them. You don't have to answer all three. So if you want to begin wrapping up some of your notes, and we just wanted to preface with that some of the resources we'll be sending out after this call will include more journal prompts. As you know, this is deep work, and there's just a lot of resources that Nicole will provide to us, to you all, that you can take a deeper dive and really get into some of your money mindsets and how they impact your life. So is there anyone that would like to share? Is there anyone that's willing to, like, that's very motivated to share their thoughts on these journal prompts? Jose, do you want to share some of your reflections?
Sure. Yes, I was writing this down. What did you see or hear about money from adults in your life while growing up? I think I learned two things. I remember my family saying, you have to work really hard, like really hard, all the time, twice as hard, because of who you are as a Latino who doesn't have a college degree, and so that was part of it. And there was a lot of scarcity around money. Money was always hard, and so like I always saw my mom and family in this constant survival mode and having to do whatever they needed to do to hustle, to like, and make money in ways that are not always legal. Like I saw that as a way of money making. And so my relationship with money was, I knew I wanted it. I knew that I wanted to make it like legally. And I just saw money as like freedom. So in life, I've had this complicated relationship. And I would say, Angel, probably some of our greatest points of contention, right, in the 20 years we've been together has been about money. Because Angel's like the person who has to say there's a budget. We can't afford that. And I don't do well because it brings me back to being a little kid and not being able to, the shame of growing up poor, essentially. And so it's very triggering for me. And it's just taken a lot of time for me to really just start to reconcile my relationship with money.
I would like to share if it's okay. Not sure if I'm just like really emotional. I was not expecting all of this at all. Not like this. You guys were mentioning in the beginning, like the little things that I have, and it's just son tan poquitos que tengo out of so many. But como I grew up always hearing like you gotta suffer for money. Like si quieres dinero, it's gonna, the cost is grand. And always from my uncles, like whenever they were pulling in money for anything, even if it's for rent or to help a family member, or when family comes together to put money together, me acuerdo always being told like, hazte para allá, esto es para hombres, and seeing my mom as a single mom, like helping my male uncles out. And I that was a little bit conflicting for me. Y el dinero se va como viene. So I think I just now, like I think I've always believed that en cuanto llega el dinero se va a ir, because that's like what I kept hearing in my mind, like what are things that you can, with your questions. And like, wow, that's something I picked up when I was little, but I don't think I had realized before how I'm still carrying those voices. Like, así como viene el dinero se va. I've always heard it. And just like right now, it's like, oh my God, I grasped it for the first time ever, realizing that it's just something that was planted in me. Pues, I'm very grateful for this.
Thank you so much, Carolina, for sharing. And what she said is that money comes and goes for those who don't speak Spanish. And so, Allison, if you can share, you had your hand up as well. Thank you for joining us.
Sure, yeah, wonderful to be here. And I have to say, when I first saw the topic, I was like, nope, not doing that. And I moved past that. And I know I actually just, for folks in Cape, there's 12-step programs around money and like under earning, debting, just money in general. This churns up a lot. So I just really identify with like, ooh, the feelings that come up. And I was actually just talking about this. My mother just moved here and we were talking about money, and My family's Colombian, and yeah, my parents were the only ones who left Colombia. Everybody else stayed in Colombia, and there was this message of like, they're the irresponsible ones. They spend all their money, and you have to save it. And it's just, I mean, there's so much, I think, even like generational trauma. And even thinking about the situation in Colombia during the 80s and the 90s, and like people losing money. And anyway, it's just really deep. So I appreciated, even though it's challenging to think about these things. The last thing I'll say is that, yeah, I never learned about money management. And I think my father was very like good with his money, and assumed maybe by inherent like body osmosis or something that I was also, he's like, oh, because you're good with money. And I was like, I'm awful with money. I don't know anything. Like, I need a ton of help. So it's just very interesting, those messages that are ingrained. And I think it's powerful to bring these out into the open and to take the shame away from it. Yeah. So I really appreciate the space.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely shame dies on contact, right? When we talk about it. I think we have Rose, and then we'll go to Irene.
Yeah, thank you. So I was thinking about the first couple of questions, what did you hear about money from the adults? And I think what I heard was like, it was crickets in terms of how do you manage it, like what's actually going on. But I always knew that it was very scarce. It wasn't something that was openly discussed, other than knowing like there wasn't a lot of it. So I saw that impact our lives in various ways, thinking about the second one. I remember seeing like cars being repossessed, my mom and my stepdad like purchasing homes that we had to move out of during my formative like teenage years because they had entered into like ballooning interest, loans. So I remember very vividly, like living somewhere, going to high school, being involved in sports, being in volunteering, and then having to move to a completely like rural and desolate place that really impacted me at that age. I was 16 years old. So created a lot of depression. I remember at 18 having to go into debt. I went into my first debt at 18 years old because of dental work that I needed to get done. And I wasn't able to pay that off until I was 25, right? Because I didn't know any better. And even now when I talk to my mom and my stepdad about it, they're like, well, I think you were still under our insurance. And it's like, why didn't you guys tell me? Or why didn't you tell me to read this loan that I was signing? So for me, it really created a recognition that this is not something that I wanted for my own life, for my future, right? I didn't want to make decisions around money because of stress. I didn't want to be like improperly informed of what I was doing. So that's like the direction I've taken. But then I have my brother who's kind of taken the same direction as my parents, right? And is a little bit more like chaotic with money. I've seen him like buy vehicles and then recognize he can't afford them and then have to give them back. So, it's interesting just how it impacts you. And whereas, like I said, for me, it's like I want to run away from that as much as possible. My brother's kind of taken some of those things. And I think, hopefully we'll be working through that and learning as he goes.
Thank you so much for sharing. Irene, I think you were next.
Yeah. So, and I had some things that actually resonate with what Rose said, but my dad, he actually, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, he actually took me to a bank to open my bank account. So thought that was an interesting, like experience that they were trying to teach me from a young age, both my parents, my mom, when I first got my credit card, I think as a teen or going into college, I can't remember, but she taught me about the interest rates. But my dad passed away when I was 8. So our life turned upside down at being, he was the breadwinner. And so yeah, scarcity, all of these topics about not having enough money and then housing issues, those were always like a through line of my life. But it's interesting from a young age, my dad actually realized that I was pretty money motivated, that I didn't like to speak up in class, that I was shy, but he figured out that if he would pay me like $1 to do show and tell and speak on class, I would do it. So it's an interesting experience from a young age what I was motivated by, but it's funny because I'm in nonprofit now. So it's just, I like my relationship with money, I'm still working it out. And so I wanted to share that. And then of course how folks, my relationship with people who are wealthy or who have attained a lot, I've had good and bad. I've certainly had
people who I work, for or have worked with that seem very generous. And then I also have had people personally who are very wealthy, who haven't been kind to, haven't treated my family well or haven't treated others well, who they, oversee as their bosses. So always just a lot of mixed things going on there, mixed feelings. Thanks.
Thank you, Irene. Yuvia?
Hi, everyone. So my experience is kind of backwards. So growing up, we didn't have very much. And the topic was always there isn't enough to save. There was just enough to make ends meet. But now I recognize that I still had to go without a lot growing up, or even just getting a pair of shoes was a struggle. So fast forward to now and putting myself through school and being a business owner myself, where I am really, really struggling is I have an imposter syndrome where it's almost, this morning I woke up to an alert from my bank account and my credit score is somewhere where I never even thought was attainable. And I would have really liked to share that with family members or even my husband, but I feel very alone with it because I don't feel like it's something I should share just because of how I grew up. So now there's a lot of shame for doing well for myself and not being able to share. I don't know if that makes sense, but going through this, it makes me very emotional, just like it does all of you guys. So thank you so much for sharing, because I didn't realize it was going to be so emotional like it is now. But thank you guys for putting up this topic. And it just really helped me realize and associate all of these words that I had never even dug in within myself to see. So I think now I'm really seeing places where I can really come in and help myself grow and heal. So thank you.
Yuvia, first of all, Yuvia, it's really good to see you. When you talked about guilt, that made me instantly hit me, like growing up in the barrio, and now, me and Angel, like we live such a blessed life. I had and have a lot of like survival guilt, like of that. And I remember this poignant moment. I was just reminded about it on Saturday because it happened at my friend Jasmine's house. So a few years ago, actually, when my mom started to get really sick and had to get lots of amputations, the beginning of her amputations, me and Angel were like, we need to remodel her house. We need to fix this up. And so I started to just become more engaged because I called it ostriching it. I buried my head in the sand and I was like, gotta just do me, and I can't really deal with everyone else's chaos and circumstances around me. But now I was in a position where like I had to confront it because I'm her oldest, most responsible son, and it's on me to show up. And I was all day running around Lowe's, doing all the things for the house. And a friend of mine who worked at a bank, I said, hey, can you pull my mom's bank records? I just need to understand her money. And we're sitting in her living room and she hands me an account and it has $11 in it. And I had a nervous breakdown. I cried uncontrollably for 4 hours straight. Like I couldn't even breathe because of like how guilty I felt. So I understand. So you're not alone in that guilt. And something that I realized is like I had to just acknowledge it and deal with it and work through that because it's like this isn't mine to carry. Yeah. This is what she wanted. Like this is what they wanted. Their sacrifice was so that we could do this. So anywho, I hear that and I feel that deeply. And I'll hand it back over to Angel and Nicole.
It's so beautiful. It's so emotional to hear everyone share their experience and to realize that we've all grown up, maybe not even talking about it and feeling like we're alone and feeling like, our families, something's wrong with us or our family. But the truth is that we all experience a version of this in our own way and we carry this through. And that's the huge motivator for this hatching hours, to uncover that so that we can begin healing and realize, live happier, more peaceful lives. So Nicole, can you just add some final thoughts to your reflection on all of everyone's feedback?
Yeah, I wrote down a couple words as I was listening to everybody, and the biggest one that kept popping up was community. Because I'm a big introvert, I even avoid spaces like this, and I saw avoidance. I think Allison called out avoidance of not wanting to come, not just because of the topic of money, but I avoid it because I'm an introvert. And what I'm learning as I enter into more of these spaces is there's a huge power of community and just knowing you're not alone. And I think we all have these thoughts about money. They vary in the nature of them, but it's helpful to not just put them on paper, but to discuss them with other people. And so I really felt that connection of community. And then the other thing that came up was just healing generational trauma, because I remember I had a conversation with you, Jose, and we were talking about like generational wealth. And you were like, that's like, that's capitalism. Like, why do we need that? And a part of it's like generational wealth is not just wealth of money, right? It's that we're healing certain things. And a lot of these conversations are rooted in our generational trauma and our generational experiences. And so these conversations help with that healing of generational trauma, and money also can help in a lot of different ways, whether that's seeking out therapy or having the privilege to even sit in these spaces. So that came up for me as well. So I really appreciate everybody for sharing their stories. I think it was very impactful, and yeah, thank you all.
Yeah, so knowing now, we've uncovered some of our feelings and emotions as they relate to money. And where do we go from here, Nicole? Like how do you help clients? What do you do as a coach, and what resources do you want to offer this group and others to help move this forward?
Yeah, so I think the big thing here is that we're not just going to pack up and go home, right? Understanding that if you think about the subconscious mind, and I have all these examples, but you guys showed me so many of them, right? But if you think about the subconscious mind of like, you're in the shower, right? And you're singing, back up, and you're the main, and you're doing the hype man, you're doing all the parts, right? And then you're still managing to like wash your hair, wash your feet, and do all the things. And you don't even realize you did them because you're having a concert, or you're having like a heated pretend argument in the shower, or whatever that may be, right? The reason why you're able to still wash your whole body is because you're doing that with your subconscious mind. And so everything everybody talked in and chimed in about, that's all things that are in your subconscious mind. You're taking these thoughts with you to the mall. You're taking these thoughts with you to your job interview, right? When they ask those questions of, how much do you want to make? Or when you're reading that job offer, right? These are all thoughts that you're carrying with you as emotional baggage. You're carrying them with you everywhere you go, and you're not realizing it. You're making decisions about big purchases, about your day-to-day activities that involve money, without realizing that these things that you heard as a child, these moments that you experienced as a child, are all weighing in on these experiences. And so it's important that you start to understand and unpack what's going on in your subconscious mind. And Angel, you mentioned like, where do we go from here? I don't know if Ty's on the call, but Ty's a great coach, and she's teaching me the RAIN method, which is an acronym for recognizing, accepting, inquiring, and nurturing. And so a lot of that is what we're doing in this call, right? We're recognizing what are some of the thoughts that we have about money. A lot of you guys talked about how you never thought about some of these things before. You didn't even recognize where they're showing up. And so that's what we did with some of those like word prompts and some of the journal activities, right? It helps with that acceptance part. It's okay to have all of these feelings and all of these emotions that you have around money. It's okay. You had no control over what formed in the early stages of 0 to 7. And so when we start to become mindful of these experiences, we can start to accept them and not run from them. And then what my coach likes to say is like, you got to get real cute and curious, right? So that's that I piece, which is the inquiring about where are these things coming up? Where are these emotions showing up? Are you at the mall and you're feeling guilt about how you're shopping? You're embracing these feelings and you're getting cute and curious about where are they showing up? How do they happen? When do they happen? When do I feel shame? And you're accepting those feelings, and then you're getting into the nurturing part, which we'll talk about later in the conversation. But that is a whole other thing of different things we can do to nurture that. And I think what's important about healing your relationship with money is healing in various different ways. It's not like you're gonna walk away from this conversation and you're healed. Like, money is something that you're gonna constantly be healing from wounds. My father passed away a couple of years and he gave me like a whole slew of new financial trauma, right? And so money is gonna continue there's gonna continue to be impacts in your life, and you're not just going to heal them all in one session, but you're going to equip yourself with things like the RAIN method to recognize, to accept, to inquire, and to nourish these damages, these wounds that you have from your relationship with money.
Thank you for sharing that. So I think now we're going to move into some of the examples that you share, like money affirmations, money manifestations, and some of the tools and that you offer.
Yeah. So a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about are part of that nurturing or that nourishing part of dealing with our relationship with money. And these, I'll be quite honest, they're pretty new for me. I was able to grow financial wealth with just the nourishing part of financial literacy and financial education. And I avoided a lot of these things. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation, is because I'm learning now that there's lots of different aspects that I could have worked on that could have nurtured my relationship with money. So affirmations, many of you might be familiar with, but they're things that you say out loud to help build your relationship with money. I've segmented and just put a couple of examples. Angel's got a whole list of different ones that you can leverage as well, but I've bucketed them into 3 groups because this is a grouping of what I see frequently, which is people not feeling like they're worthy of money, that they're worthy of financial success, gratitude, right? As we're building, you mentioned you're a business owner, you know that that's difficult to kind of build up money around our businesses. And so it's important to have gratitude for what we do have. I have a gratitude journal that I work on every night, and it's not necessarily just around money, but even when I've had the worst of days, right, I can still find like 3 good things that happened and document the gratitude along them. So as a part of growing wealth, it's important to be grateful for what you already have. And then abundance, a lot of us grew up in that scarcity mindset of that money was limited. And so this kind of helps create the belief that money is abundant and it can keep flowing to you. It's not limited, and that money is drawn to you. And so you can work on saying these affirmations. People have different ways of doing these things. They're all rooted in the purpose of regulating our nervous system. Our nervous system is like a fingerprint. Everyone's nervous system is different. Someone's poison can be someone else's medicine. So how you do these and when you do them can change. I know, Jose, you had shared kind of some different practices you use around affirmations and when you say them, what time of day. I don't know if you want to share some of that insight.
Yeah, like affirmations I have found are really helpful when I'm in a regulated state. Like if I'm in panic and I just like am having like a complete neuro reaction to something, so my stress has taken over, just saying I'm worthy of financial success isn't going to help. Like what I need to do is go for a walk. I need to do like 10 jumping jacks. I need to like get the energy out. I need to write it down. I need to talk to somebody that I can just download with. And then once I'm in a more regulated place, that's when we start to really do the work of cultivating these belief systems. A lot of times we try and do these to calm us down when they really take shape once we're already calm. But like Nicole said, if this will help you calm down, use what works for you. So I think the idea is, here's some options for you. Pick the one that you see works for you in your life.
Thank you, Jose. And then if you'll go to the next one, Angel. Yeah, so manifestations is something that I'll be quite blunt, I always thought was like the biggest crock, right? You ask the universe for something and it sends it to you. But a part of manifestation is really just aligning, or the whole purpose of manifestation is aligning your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions to what you want to achieve. And so I was very big on the action part and not necessarily the thoughts and beliefs. And so a part of money manifestations, right? You don't just say, I want to be a millionaire and $1 million shows up on your front step, right? It's you're writing down that goal of being a millionaire. You're writing down what are the steps you need to take to be a millionaire, what progress you need to take. Somebody had given me the advice of they had written a book, right? And they wanted to publish this book. And that was their goal. And their goal was rooted in their why of, I want everyone to hear my messaging. But they wrote down who they wanted to work with in terms of illustrators, who they wanted to publish their book, what podcasts they wanted to go on to talk about their book. And they're very intentional about this goal. And so you can do the same with money. If your goal is to be a millionaire, how? What are you going to do with that $1 million? All of that is part of manifesting. And then I have on here, also, if you want something, like start treating what you already have as if it is that thing. You want a brand new Ferrari, start treating that, Kia as if it's your Ferrari. Clean it well, treat it well. So these are all parts of money manifestations. And one thing I didn't talk about, Angel, because I'm the worst at selling myself, but money coaching is a big part of a nurturing or nourishing aspect. I am a personal finance coach, and personal finance coaching was new to me a couple years ago. And what a personal finance coach can do for you is they are able to work with you on any goal that you have around money, whether that's paying off debt, saving, retirement planning, a goal of saving for your kids' education. Any goal you have around money, a financial coach works with you one-on-one so that they can help get you to, those milestones that you want with your money. If you think of any coach, right, and why they're a good coach, if you've ever played sports, you ever played an instrument, you ever had a teacher that was really good. The great thing about a coach is, one, they're an expert on the subject. They've grown wealth themselves, or they've played basketball, they've played that violin, whatever that may be. They're an expert. And they've also worked with other individuals, and they know how to troubleshoot and root cause lots of different things that you're experiencing with your money. The other great thing about a coach is they know your strengths and your weaknesses, right? My coach knew if I was good at my right hand or good at my left hand, and he highlighted my strengths and he worked on my weaknesses. And a coach also cares about your individual goals, right? Like if I help you reach your goals, that's a reflection on me. And so they're along with you for the journey, and they're going to help you through the things that you're battling. And they get to know you on a personal level in terms of your mindsets, right? Some of you guys talked about scarcity mindsets or shame around money. Your coach is going to know you as an individual and as a person, and they're going to be able to help you when you're avoiding money, when you're having shame towards money. And so this is also another form of nourishing that can really help you on your money journey.
Nicole is going to share some of her coaches that she follows on Instagram, and also some podcasts that are helpful.
I mean, this year I set an intentional goal with my money, and that I wanted my money to flow towards more Latinos. And so these are coaches that are both Latino and queer, and podcasts. A lot of times we don't think about, like, even just watching a show about money being nurturing for our financial mindsets, listening to a podcast, like these all count. And I started listening to a lot of things about money, and even when it didn't apply to me, like I could just put it somewhere in my mental, brain and say, like, I'll come back to this at a later time. Like just starting to hear the conversations. We all feel a lot of avoidance around money. It's too complicated. I don't like numbers. But the more you hear it, or find somebody that resonates with you. Find somebody who speaks the language you speak, whether you're a visual learner. Just try all these different resources, because you're going to find somebody who talks about money the way that resonates with you. And you're going to draw that connection with them, and it's really going to help you to be able to grow your financial literacy and your education.
Thank you so much. In an effort to provide more information on financial literacy, like today we talked about the emotions and the underlying things that impact how we spend and how our relationship to money. And we'll be sending out more detailed resources that Nicole has pulled together. We wanted to ask everyone, if we created a future session with Nicole on financial literacy, what would interest you? A lot of these topics I've avoided because it's like, oh, I'm young, I still have time to do this or that, but time moves really quickly, and retirement, again, is not something that is talked about widely. So I think that would be a good one as well. We want to make sure that you can contact Nicole for her services, whether that's on Instagram. She has different offerings. There's a newsletter that you can subscribe to. You can sign up for some of her free webinars that she has. You can have a one-on-one coaching session. So this is her information. Follow her on Instagram, connect with her, and hopefully we can create a second hatching hour where we talk about more financial literacy and we talk about more products and how we can leverage them for our benefit. All right, any closing remarks? Anything that we're gonna end on time or a bit before on time, but we also want to open it up for Q&A for anyone to make comments or ask Nicole any questions. So it looks like we're done. Thank you so much for joining us and being vulnerable and sharing your insights and your reflections. I'm really happy to see this unfold the way it did. So thank you, Jose, Nicole, and everyone on the call.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nicole. And for anybody who has some questions for Nicole, we're going to stay on about 15 more minutes to be able to just answer any specific questions. But yes, I highly recommend connecting with Nicole. Great, she gives great content on the gram, which I love, and I know it makes her uncomfortable, but makes me so proud, Nicole. Truly, it's a really cool thing when you grow up with somebody and you have this personal relationship with, but now we're intersecting on a professional level, and we're both looking for freedom. I'm looking for emotional freedom, spiritual freedom. I want to be able to have the ability to live my very best life unapologetically, while also lifting those around me up. And I think finances is a big part of all of that equation. So I'm very grateful to you, Nicole, and Angel, for actually managing all of our money for all these years.
Thank you guys all for attending. I really appreciate the support, and just for every one of you that commented in the chat or raised your hand to speak. I really appreciate your honesty and just that you felt safe to do so. So thank you all.
Yeah. Any questions for Nicole?
I have a question or comment. I did see or notice that you brought most of everything of our lives that we go through. However, I didn't see preparing for death. And that's a lot where I dealt with at the bank when I had, because I worked at the credit union or financial institution. So we got to see a lot of people that were not prepared for their loved ones who passed away. They were not economically ready. And I don't think I saw that on there. Is that something you would be preparing people also to, because that could also be, as you mentioned, traumatic, and it could also be, and it does affect a lot of people, because that's something you definitely don't talk about, especially being such a sensitive topic, because you don't want your loved ones to pass away. And it definitely brings a burden if you're not prepared for that either.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because as you know, my father passed away a couple years. Jose as well lost his mom recently. And so it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And it's a topic that I think a lot of us avoid, because one, we think we have this indefinite amount of time, because although life is short, it's the longest thing we've ever known. So we avoid that. And it's also just a topic that's difficult to talk about, because it's morbid, and we don't want to talk about that. So I think we can definitely add that as well as a topic that we can discuss. And like I said, I really appreciate you bringing that up, Maria.
I have a question. I've been seeing a lot, and I'm almost tempted to do it, but I've seen it work and I want to know your take on it. The new getting a folder and every week you put in like so much money, like a savings book, I guess. And you put like, you know, let's say I want a pool for my backyard, so I need $20,000. So I don't know if you've seen it where they have like these books that you can buy and you just stick in money every week or every so often. What is your take on that?
Yeah, so what you're talking about is called a sinking fund, which is really just a savings account. Everyone gets thrown off by the sinking fund, but it's a savings account and you're just designating certain things for that savings account, like travel, like kids' birthday parties, whatever that may be. The way you set it up, right, you can set it up on your account and just have different savings accounts online, or you can have a folder where it's physical cash. The method in which you do it is rooted in your relationships with money. It can be rooted in your nervous system. It could be rooted in various different ways. For some folks, they need that folder, and it's helpful to physically, tangibly feel the money. And I've had clients that like they need some form of like confetti on the screen when they put towards savings, because it just gives them that that celebration towards money. So you want to do it in different bank accounts, they all get you to the same goal, right? Which is savings. It's just important to know what works for you. And so I think that's one of the benefits of working with a coach is like, I know what works for my clients, whether that's physical or online. And I'm a proponent of it if it helps you save.
What does what does it look like to have a financial coach? I want to sign up. What does it look like? What does it mean? What does it look like?
Yeah.
Would it be like a weekly session, or do we submit stuff to you? Because I want it.
Great question. So every coach has a different program. Mine is a 6-month program and I work bi-weekly with clients. And so what I start with is an exploratory call. So if you follow me on Instagram, you can see my link tree, and I start with an exploratory call just to get to know my clients, get to know what their goals are, and discuss with them what the plan would be to help achieving those goals. It's kind of like when you go to a doctor and you tell them like, my stomach hurts and I get headaches, and those are your financial problems. And then they're gonna say, okay, you need sana colita de rana, and you need this, and they're gonna start diagnosing you, right, of what's gonna work out for you. And I typically don't take on clients if I can't make their money back. That would be, the end goal is that you're achieving your goals and also making back your financial commitment. So exploratory call is 30 minutes and we do that diagnosing.
Yeah. Thank you.
For folks on here that, let's say we're not ready for the coach yet, but we want to start a budget. We want to understand what we bring in and what we spend. Like, what are the steps? Like, what would your recommendation be, Nicole, for someone who's like, okay, I just kind of spend, and like, what tools, what can I use?
Yeah. So most financial gurus say like starting a budget, right? You're going to start listing out your expenses. I'm going to put a big X on that. One, it's finding your why, because I think there's so many things out there of like, you need to do this and you need to achieve this goal, and in different realms of our lives. And if you don't have a strong why behind your budget, it's going to fail each and every time. You need to find a strong and powerful why on why you're doing it. You're not just doing it because the TikTok masses tell you you're supposed to. And once you understand why you want to have a budget, you have, a strong intention behind it. I also encourage clients to kind of list out what they value about money. Like, what do they value as a person? Not money, but what do you value as a person? Is it family? Is it, my free time? And use that to kind of ground you in your spending. And then it's also getting real about what your expenses are. So many people form a budget without any reality of what they're spending. So, download your credit card statements and have that clarity of where your money's truly going before you start creating a budget and assigning it. And then it gets down to, the listing out your expenses and different things like that. But I think all those things need to happen before you get into that creation of budgeting. Did that answer the question, Angel?
It does, yeah. And it's just some comments about that I'm reflecting is like, I know in my journey, I get how people, for example, you know, they see the topic of this hatching hour and they're like, oh, not for me. I don't want to hear that. It's like too deep or whatever. But like that avoidance just leads to further kind of trauma, you know, and troubles down the line. So it's like I've really had to embrace those uncomfortable feelings of, yeah, I'm not there, I'm not where I want to be. But the first step is like realizing it and moving towards it. So that's just kind of some of the thoughts that I just wanted to reflect on in my journey, you know, that I've come through.
Yeah, and I think avoidance, right? It's your nervous system telling you, it's trying to keep you safe, right? And so it's saying danger, danger, step away from this. But when you're nourishing and nurturing your financial well-being, you're coming to a place where you're going to accept that you want to learn certain things about your money. And so even myself, who has been budgeting for 18 years, when I schedule my budgeting in between like 2 work calls that I hate budgeting, right? The sweet spot for me is when my mental capacity and bandwidth is there, and that's in between my bath and my trash TV. That's my ideal spot to budget. And otherwise, I'm going to avoid it too. And that's someone who works with money all the time. So you really have to create some comforts in between and make a little comfort sandwich with when you're avoiding money.
Awesome.
It's like when you say that, I just hear like the intentionality, like have the self-awareness to know this is the best time for me to kind of relate to money. And I think like that's not just money. Like I think so often we get caught up in just the hustle and bustle of like surviving on planet Earth, you know? And me and Angel, we don't even have kids in the mix of all of it. So when I see our friends who are working parents like yourself, Nicole, it's like there's all these things that understandably so pull our attention, and like our lives go where our attention goes. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of mindfulness and developing a meditation practice, a reflection practice, a journaling practice, you know, going on walks without your phone, to just actually go on a mindful walk to like think about things and contemplate things, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you know. We need to create almost like the capacity to be clear about what is it that we want, what is at the core of like not just like our money, you know, things that we're working through, but all of the things that are part of our lives, you know, our relationships to ourselves, to others, our health, you know, all of those kinds of things. So yeah, everything is just so connected. And I know that whenever I start to stress out about money, like I start to I don't perform as well as at work. I shut down as a person because I've now learned like it taps into the shame of growing up poor. And as soon as I hit that button of the kid who grew up in Barrio Anita in a house that had, you know, chicken coop that like just had barbed wire around it, like I have so many feelings about that, which is why like I remember when me and Angel bought our first home, it didn't have the floors that I wanted. We got the keys to a brand new house and I said, I want all the floors ripped out because I want this. Like it was like because I was trying to appease that little kid's shame is really what was at the core of it, you know? And I was calling myself like a house diva at one point, but I realized it's because it was my like inner child who was just really flared up. Like, this is your chance to like belong. This is your chance to be proud, and it needs to look like this. And it wasn't, and now like I realized I need to do the emotional healing. And part of that is relating to money, but part of that is letting my inner child know you are enough. You have always been enough, and it is okay that you are doing well in life. It is okay.
And I think that's an example of how when we're operating from that shame, how we make financial decisions and we get things to validate ourselves, and we get the car, we get the house, and we have the things and the trip. And so like we look back and we're like, oh wow, we're in debt. Like, you know, and I think that's not uncommon. Like that's what our society feeds us is you get the nice car, and then you get the house, and then you have a wedding or whatnot, and you have the kids, and before you're on this hamster wheel, and it's all derived from just these emotions of not being enough or the shame.
This has been such a helpful conversation. I think growing up, you know, poor and in that scarcity mindset, that leads to sometimes as an adult living above your means, kind of what you're talking about, Angel and Jose. Like we didn't have it, so we want the brand name. Yeah. And we want to show off what we couldn't have before.
Yep.
Nicole, kind of like even with, I was talking about this with Evan, rent, like how much of our income is supposed to go towards rent?
Yeah. So first, it's interesting that you say like, so my sister's on the call. Shout out to my sister for being as supportive as she is. But like, if you have a sibling, you know that you had like very shared experiences, but sometimes we'll go one way and sometimes we'll go the other way. So even the exact same experience, or as close as you could possibly get to the same experience, can can have different results. And some of that is with that scarcity mindset, could be like, I'm not spending at all because I have that scarcity mindset. Others, it's I'm spending a lot because I didn't have it growing up and now I have money, and if I don't spend it now that I have it, then that's almost like I'm poor again, and I'm not poor, so I'm not going to do that. So it can have different impacts on different people. In terms of rules, there's always going to be rules of thumb of like how much you can spend on housing. Some people say 25%, some people say 30. Evan might have a better number than me, but like I feel like those are rules of thumb that help with like, am I in the realm of reality? Am I way outside the bounds? Those rules of thumb help. 25%, it's a good rule of thumb. But if you're someone who just loves being home and that's like your go-to, then you can spend a little bit more as long as you're willing to push back on other areas. Cars, right? They're not great financial purchases. They depreciate in value. But if you're somebody who, you know, but if you're somebody who gets
Save space.
somebody who gets hard off of a stick shift, right? Then maybe, you know, you can spend a little bit more on a car. Like money is it's a tool that we can leverage for what's important towards to us. And so the rules of thumbs are helpful, but don't be so stuck on them that you're not using money as a tool to make you happy.
Yeah, I think about our rent in Santa Monica and, you know, coming back to Arizona, it's like, wow, we can have 4 houses, but it comes with a quality of life. And I think that we make that conscious choice to understand that we're not making this blindly. It's like, it's because we're getting something out of it and there's a plan. And, you know, so I think it's just different for everyone to understand what their plan is, what works for them, what they're able to do. And quality of life is a huge thing, you know, wellness. And financial wellness is one of them. So as long as you're balancing that, it's this personal choice that I think is important.
Yeah. And I think it's okay to give ourselves the permission to like, you know, live well, because part of my philosophy is like, I want to live well so that I'm in a better position to uplift others. You know, it's always about like looking behind you and then beside you and like making sure you're bringing people along. And I especially think those of us who like identify with like a marginalized background, whether you're queer, whether you're a Latino or a Latina, or, you know, a BIPOC person, it's part of us reconciling and healing this is also going to give us the ability to have these conversations. And then I think about like, I'm having these conversations with my little cousins. I'm having these conversations with my big cousins for the first time about money and what they're thinking, their plans for the future. And it's about transferring that, you know, financial literacy. And like you said, Nicole, not just the trauma, but transferring over the wisdom that we are all collecting too, because that's what we are. You know, we're our ancestors' wildest dreams, and we're brought on this earth to break generational traumas and to uplift the wisdom that is also comes from the same places and the same households that our traumas come from. But so often we only focus on the bad stuff because our brain is wired to do that. We're not bad people. Our brain is wired to focus on those things. So yes. Any final words, Nicole or Angel, before we let everyone go for the day?
No, I'm just really grateful for everyone that's here. And
Thank you very much. I know when like it first announced that it was like financial, I kind of got like cringy, like, oh, I'm going to hear all the shit I don't do or all the things I do wrong. So, but I really enjoyed it and I look forward to hearing more and hopefully down the road have you as a coach. So thank you.
Tiffany, appreciate you showing up today and taking finances by the horns and taking the steps to heal some of these financial traumas.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you too.
All right,
It is very
everyone.
insightful. Sorry. It is very insightful to have people like you offering these free services, helping support the community, bringing all of this nuances, what people
do not know or are ashamed of bringing or hearing. Talking about traumatic experience, being vulnerable, it helps create that safe space for people to open up and be more attuned to what they can do with their monies or how they can better themselves in the future for their financial needs. Thank you.
And I love that when I look at the screen, this is our family and these are our friends. Like, you know, everyone is here because they were probably referred to, or that they're somehow connected to us because of how you even know about hatching and all the things. And how beautiful. Let's all continue to commit to having these conversations with each other, since so many of us are naturally connected to each other and regularly talk. And if not, like, follow us on Instagram, email us. If we don't have that direct line and you want to make it stronger, you know, Hatching is also here to do personal and professional coaching. So it's, you know, a combination of all the things are helpful. So take what makes sense and it benefits you and leave what doesn't.
Thank you.
All right. Adios, everyone. Have a happy Tuesday.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.